The moment the billionaire heiress crashed her silver sports car into the back of an old pickup truck, she thought it was just another expensive mistake. She did not know the quiet man stepping out of that dusty truck was carrying the one secret her father had taken to his grave. And by the time she discovered the truth, she would have to choose between the empire she inherited and the man her family had destroyed. Watch till the end, because the final letter her father left behind changes everything. And if stories of justice, forgiveness, and hidden truth touch your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more emotional stories. Amelia Whitmore had grown up behind polished glass, marble floors, and locked gates. To the world, she was the only daughter of Richard Whitmore, one of the richest men in the country. After his death, newspapers called her the young queen of the Whitmore Empire. They showed her in designer suits, stepping out of private jets, attending charity galas, smiling beside people who only wanted access to her name. But behind the cameras, Amelia was drowning. Her father had died 3 months earlier, and every day since then, the company board reminded her that she was not ready. They smiled politely when she entered the room, but their eyes were cold. Her uncle, Victor Whitmore, had already begun acting like the company belonged to him. He told her she was emotional, inexperienced, too soft to lead. That morning, after another brutal board meeting, Amelia stormed out of the tower with tears burning behind her eyes. She climbed into her silver sports car, slammed the door, and drove without knowing where she was going. Rain covered the windshield. Her phone kept ringing. Victor's name flashed again and again. She ignored it. Then, at a quiet country intersection, the traffic light turned red. Amelia saw it too late. Her car slid across the wet road and crashed into the back of an old blue pickup truck. The sound was sharp and violent. Her airbags burst open. For several seconds, she could only hear her own breathing. Then she looked ahead and saw the truck. Its rear bumper was crushed. The tailgate hung crooked. A small wooden toolbox had fallen onto the road. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He was around 40, tall, steady, wearing a faded brown work jacket and dark jeans. His dark hair was slightly messy from the rain, and his face carried the tired calm of someone who had survived too much to be surprised by anything. He looked first at Amelia's car, then at her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Amelia blinked. Most people would have shouted. Most people would have recognized her and tried to take advantage. But this man's first question was not about money. It was about her. I'm fine," she said, shaken. "I'm sorry. I didn't see the light." The man walked closer, keeping distance so she would not feel threatened. "Stay seated for a minute. Sometimes shock hides pain." His voice was gentle but firm. Amelia looked at his truck. "I'll pay for everything. I promise." He glanced at the damage and gave a small, sad smile. "Money can fix metal. Not everything else." Before Amelia could answer, a young girl's voice came from inside the truck. "Dad? Is everything okay?" Amelia's heart tightened. A little girl, about 8 years old, sat in the passenger seat, clutching a school backpack to her chest. She had brown curls and frightened eyes. The man turned quickly. "It's okay, Sophie. Stay inside." Amelia stepped out into the rain. "There was a child in the truck?" "She's fine," he said. Seatbelt did its job. Guilt hit Amelia harder than the crash. She looked at the little girl and whispered, "I'm so sorry." The man looked at her more closely now, and something changed in his expression. Recognition. But not the kind Amelia expected. Not excitement. Not greed. Something colder. Something wounded. "You're Richard Whitmore's daughter," he said. Amelia froze. "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Of course." Before she could ask what that meant, a police car arrived, followed by a tow truck. Amelia gave her information, offered to call her insurance, offered to arrange a rental truck, offered anything to make it right. The man only gave his name. Ethan Cole. When Amelia heard it, she felt a strange pull in her memory. Cole. She had heard that name before, long ago, whispered in her father's study during arguments that stopped whenever she entered. Ethan refused her driver, refused her personal assistant, refused the company repair service. But when Sophie's backpack got soaked in the rain and the tow truck driver said Ethan's truck would be gone for days, Amelia insisted. "At least let me drive you both home," she said. Ethan looked like he wanted to refuse. Then he looked at Sophie, shivering in the cold. "Fine," he said. "Just home." The ride was silent for 10 minutes. Sophie sat in the back, wrapped in Amelia's expensive coat. Amelia kept glancing at Ethan. His hands were rough, his eyes watchful, and his silence felt heavier than anger. Finally, she said, "You knew my father?" Ethan looked out the window. "A long time ago." "Were you business partners?" A humorless laugh escaped him. "Something like that." Amelia waited. Ethan said nothing more. They reached a small farmhouse at the edge of town. It was old but clean, with warm lights glowing in the windows. A woman's faded photograph hung near the front door when Amelia helped Sophie inside. The girl ran to change clothes. Ethan stood in the doorway, blocking Amelia from entering further. "Thank you for the ride," he said. Amelia nodded, but her eyes went again to the photograph. A smiling woman stood beside Ethan, holding baby Sophie. "Your wife?" Amelia asked softly. Ethan's face changed. Pain crossed it quickly, but not quickly enough. "She passed away," he said. "I'm sorry." He looked at her then, and for the first time, his anger cracked. "So was your father." Amelia's breath caught. "What does that mean?" Ethan looked toward the back room where Sophie had gone. Then he opened a small drawer near the door and took out an old envelope, yellowed at the edges, sealed but worn from being held many times. On the front was written one name. Amelia. Her father's handwriting. Amelia stared at it. "Where did you get that?" "From him," Ethan said. "The night before he died." Her voice dropped. "Why didn't you give it to me?" "Because he made me promise I would only give it to you when you came to me without lawyers, without bodyguards, without the Whitmore name protecting you." Amelia looked at the wrecked sports car outside, at the rain, at the old truck she had destroyed. Ethan continued, "Looks like fate has a strange sense of timing." Her hands trembled as she reached for the envelope, but Ethan pulled it back. "Not yet," he said. Anger flashed through her grief. "That is from my father. And the truth inside it can destroy the people around you," Ethan said. "Including the people you still trust." Amelia felt the room tilt. "What truth?" Ethan's eyes were tired. "Your father didn't build Whitmore Industries alone. And your uncle knows exactly who paid the price." That night, Amelia could not sleep. She returned to the city, but the envelope haunted her. Her father had left her hundreds of official documents, legal trusts, company letters, recordings for shareholders. But a secret letter in the hands of a mechanic living on the edge of town? That made no sense. The next morning, Amelia searched the company archives for Ethan Cole. At first, nothing appeared. Then, in a restricted folder from 20 years earlier, she found a name. Cole Engineering. Founded by Ethan Cole and Richard Whitmore. Her father had once had a partner. Amelia's heart pounded as she opened old scanned files. There were patent designs, engine systems, energy storage models, all signed by Ethan Cole. Then, suddenly, the partnership ended. Whitmore Industries kept the patents. Cole Engineering vanished. Ethan's name disappeared from every public record. She found one lawsuit. Dismissed. She found one settlement. Sealed. Then her office door opened. Victor walked in without knocking. "What are you digging into?" he asked. Amelia closed the folder. "Old company history." Victor smiled, but his eyes sharpened. "History is dangerous when read without context. Did my father have a partner named Ethan Cole?" The smile vanished. For 1 second, Victor looked afraid. Then he laughed. "A failed inventor. Bitter man. Tried to claim credit for your father's work. Richard handled it." "Handled it how?" "Legally." Amelia stood. "Why was it sealed?" Victor stepped closer. "Because your father was merciful. Don't waste your time on ghosts, Amelia. You have a company to run." After he left, Amelia knew one thing clearly. Ethan had been telling the truth. The next day, she returned to the farmhouse. Ethan was in the barn repairing an old tractor. Sophie sat nearby drawing with crayons. When Amelia entered, Ethan did not look surprised. "I read the files," she said. "Then you read the clean version. I want the real one." Ethan wiped his hands on a cloth. "The real one cost my wife her health, my home, my company, and my daughter's future." Amelia swallowed. "Tell me." Ethan looked at Sophie. "Go inside, sweetheart." When they were alone, he began. 20 years earlier, Ethan Cole had been a young engineer with a revolutionary design. Richard Whitmore had money, charm, and ambition. Together, they built the foundation of what would become Whitmore Industries. Ethan created the technology. Richard found investors. At first, they were brothers in everything but blood. Then Victor entered the company. Victor saw Ethan as a threat. He convinced Richard that investors would never trust a poor engineer with equal control. Papers were changed. Contracts were rewritten. Ethan's signatures were copied. By the time he realized what had happened, his patents were gone. "I fought," Ethan said. "Your father believed Victor at first. Then he discovered the fraud. But by then, the company was already huge. A public scandal would have destroyed thousands of employees. Richard begged me to settle quietly. He promised he would fix it later." "Did he?" Amelia asked. Ethan's eyes hardened. "No. He waited too long." "What about your wife?" Ethan looked away. "Lena was pregnant with Sophie when the lawsuit drained everything we had. Stress took her health. After Sophie was born, Lena got sick. We couldn't afford the best treatment anymore. Your father sent money secretly, but Lena refused it when she learned where it came from." Amelia covered her mouth. "I didn't know." "I know," Ethan said. "That's why I never hated you." Amelia's eyes filled. "But you hated him." Ethan was silent for a long time. "I wanted to," he said. "But the night before he died, Richard came here. Not as a billionaire. Not as a king. Just as a broken man. He cried in this barn and said the empire had become a prison. He said Victor was planning something worse. He gave me that letter and a drive. He said only you could decide what kind of Whitmore would remain." "A drive?" Amelia whispered. Ethan walked to a locked cabinet and pulled out a small metal box. Inside was the envelope and a black flash drive. "This contains proof," he said. "Original patents. Forged documents. Recordings. Your father's confession." Amelia stared at the box. Her whole life was inside it, breaking apart. "Why give it to me now?" she asked. "Because yesterday, after the crash, you looked at Sophie like her life mattered more than your car. That told me maybe Richard's daughter was not Victor's puppet." Amelia took the envelope with trembling fingers and opened it. "My dearest Amelia. If you are reading this, then Ethan kept his promise better than I kept mine. There are sins money cannot bury. Years ago, I allowed fear and ambition to silence the truth. Ethan Cole was not my enemy. He was my partner, my friend, and the true mind behind the technology that built our empire. Your Uncle Victor committed the fraud, but I committed the greater crime by protecting the company instead of protecting justice. I failed Ethan. I failed his wife. I failed you by leaving you a throne built on a wound. But there is still time for you to become what I was too weak to be. Trust Ethan. Restore what was stolen. And beware of Victor. He has been moving company money through false accounts. If he gains control, he will destroy everything. I leave the final choice to you. Do not protect my legacy. Redeem it. Your loving father. Richard. Amelia broke down. For the first time since her father's funeral, she did not cry like a rich woman being watched by the world. She cried like a daughter who had lost her father twice, first to death, then to truth. Ethan did not comfort her with empty words. He simply placed a glass of water beside her and waited. When Amelia finally looked up, her voice was quiet but steady. I want to make this right. Ethan shook his head. You don't know what that will cost. Yes, she said. I do. It will cost me the lie. The next week, Amelia called an emergency board meeting. Victor arrived confident, wearing a black suit and a smile made of knives. Board members filled the glass conference room. Cameras waited outside because rumors had already spread that Amelia's leadership was collapsing. Victor began before she could speak. My niece has been under great emotional strain, he said. For the good of the company, I propose temporary executive control be transferred to you? Amelia interrupted. Victor smiled. To experienced hands. Amelia stood at the head of the table. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear. I agree this company needs experienced hands, she said. That is why I invited the man who helped build it. The doors opened. Ethan Cole walked in. He wore a simple dark suit that looked borrowed, but he carried himself with quiet strength. The room erupted in whispers. Victor's face drained of color. Amelia placed the flash drive on the table. For 20 years, she said, Whitmore Industries has profited from inventions stolen from Ethan Cole. My father admitted this before his death. Today, I am submitting the full evidence to the board, to federal investigators, and to the public. Victor slammed his hand on the table. She's lying. Amelia looked at him. No, Uncle. You are done lying. The screen behind her lit up. Documents appeared. Signatures. Patent drafts. Financial transfers. Then came Richard Whitmore's recorded voice, tired and full of regret, confessing everything. The boardroom fell silent. Victor tried to leave, but security stopped him at the door. Ethan watched without joy. Revenge did not heal him. But truth, finally spoken aloud, gave him something he had not felt in years. Air. In the days that followed, the world exploded. News channels ran the story non-stop. Whitmore stock fell. Investors panicked. Victor was arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Lawyers warned Amelia to deny everything, to blame her father, to protect the brand. But Amelia refused. She held a press conference outside the same tower where her father's name shone in steel letters. My family built wealth from brilliance we failed to honor, she said. Today, that changes. Whitmore Industries will return ownership rights, compensation, and public credit to Ethan Cole. We will establish a foundation in Lena Cole's name to support families destroyed by corporate abuse. And I will not lead this company unless it stands on truth. Reporters shouted questions. Critics called it weakness. Some shareholders called it betrayal. But ordinary people listened. Employees listened. And Ethan listened from the back of the crowd, holding Sophie's hand. That evening, Amelia came to the farmhouse again. This time, she did not arrive in a sports car. She came in a plain black sedan, carrying no lawyers, no cameras, no excuses. Sophie opened the door and smiled shyly. "Are you still sad?" Amelia knelt to her level. "A little. But I'm trying to be brave." Sophie handed her a drawing. It showed 3 people standing beside an old truck and a tall building. Above them, in crooked letters, she had written, "Truth fixes broken things." Amelia looked at Ethan, tears in her eyes. "She gets that from her mother," Ethan said softly. Months passed. The company changed slowly, painfully, but honestly. Ethan did not become a greedy man seeking a throne. He accepted what was rightfully his, but he used much of it to rebuild the town his old company had once supported. He reopened coal engineering as a research center for young inventors who had no money but brilliant minds. Amelia stepped down temporarily, then returned only after employees voted to support her reforms. She visited factory floors, listened to workers, cut corrupt contracts, and learned that leadership was not about standing above people. It was about standing accountable before them. And somewhere between courtrooms, repair shops, foundation meetings, and quiet dinners at the farmhouse, Amelia and Ethan became something neither expected. Not a fairy tale. Not a scandal. A bond built on grief, respect, and the difficult work of forgiveness. One evening, nearly a year after the crash, Amelia stood beside the repaired old blue truck outside Ethan's barn. The sunset was soft. Sophie chased fireflies in the yard. "I still think about that day," Amelia said. "The crash?" Ethan asked. She nodded. "I thought I had ruined your truck." Ethan smiled faintly. "You did ruin my truck." Amelia laughed through her tears. Then Ethan looked toward the farmhouse, toward the life that had survived loss, betrayal, and truth. "But maybe," he said, "some crashes don't destroy things. Maybe they break open what was already hidden." Amelia looked at the old truck, then at the man who had carried her father's last secret, not for revenge, but for the right moment. "My father asked me not to protect his legacy," she said. "He asked me to redeem it." Ethan nodded. "And you did?" Amelia shook her head. "No. We're still doing it." Years later, people would still talk about the billionaire heiress who crashed into an old truck and uncovered the secret that changed an empire. But those who knew the real story understood it was never about the crash. It was about a man who lost everything but kept his honor. A daughter who inherited a lie but chose the truth. A little girl who believed broken things could still be fixed. And a final letter from a flawed father, asking for one last chance to make things right. Because sometimes, the greatest inheritance is not money, power, or a famous name. Sometimes, the greatest inheritance is the courage to repair what your family once broke. And sometimes, the road to truth begins with the sound of 2 vehicles colliding in the rain.